Hey there, my name is Pravus, and welcome to a brand new game called Ixion. Now, what is Ixion? Well, it is a city builder in space, aboard a great space station called the Tiqqun. The game has several elements of both survival and exploration, while simultaneously being a very story-driven experience, telling an epic saga of humanity surviving against insurmountable odds. The game is very ambitious in what it tries to accomplish, but in my experience so far with the game, it actually seems to deliver upon that pretty darn well. The best way I can describe this game is that it feels a lot like, well, Frostpunk, but in space. Now, I don't want to spoil the story for you guys too much, but I don't mind talking a bit about the prologue in order to give you a premise and an idea what this game has in store. Basically, back home on Earth, there is an ecological disaster just waiting to happen. Recognizing the writing on the wall, a visionary company has created the Tiqqun Station as a method of propelling humanity into the stars and keeping our story going. The entire prologue is basically getting the Tiqqun Station ready for launch, and when you do, it feels like quite the triumph. Until something goes, horribly wrong. And that is where the story picks up in this particular video. But again, I'm going to keep all future spoilers to a minimum so you can have a fresh experience. Basically, though, we are on this Tiqqun ring station. It looks awesome. There's a giant drive on the back so we can catapult ourselves forward. Right now, though, we are focused primarily on just this one sector of the ring station. This is where I can build up my housing, my resource production buildings, and my storage to keep our people alive, healthy, and most importantly, safe. Eventually, we will be able to unlock additional sections of the ring, so that should give you some idea what kind of scale we have to work with. Now, there are several resources you'll need to worry about at the very top. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but basically gathering up some raw materials like iron or carbon can be refined into good things like alloys and polymers. We'll also have to worry about producing some water through ice or our own food, etc. And there's the all-important population, the people who house our station, the survivors of Earth. Now, given that the Tiqqun just came through a pretty nasty situation, our hull integrity is a little on the low side, and we need to get this thing repaired ASAP. We also need to worry about the trust of the people aboard our station, because if this ever falls, we might find ourselves in a bit of a mutinous situation. In fact, this game has several different options and story-driven events that might test your morals a little bit and whether you are able to lead a fragmented and terrified people. For now, though, let's focus on some other important things. For example, I need to get a probe launcher. We need to find out what is going out in space so we can get this station repaired. Absolutely crucial for us. Now, as far as the planetary system, well, let's just take a little zoom out over here. And we can see that there are a few things around the sun. There's the Earth, there's the moon in all of its shattered glory, and there's also a ship that had been working with us in the past. We do need to go find out what's going on over here. Now, I've already built up a science ship. This was part of the tutorial, so I'm going to go ahead and launch these guys off to the Urshanabi and find out what the heck happened with this ship. Anyway, basically we have a whole bunch of resources I've got stored up in these dockyards, and some robotic autonomous systems are now delivering what we need over to this probe launcher, which will be getting built up pretty soon so we can then construct probes and send them out into the yonder. Our science ship just arrived, which doesn't take too long. Let's see what's going on over here. Sensors detected the Urshanabi, but the ship is broken in two and not transmitting any signals. The phrase, "whoever helps DOLOS is an enemy of humanity," has been daubed in large letters. The company that launched our station is called DOLOS. So that doesn't bode well. What the heck has happened back in the solar system? Let's gather the remaining resources and ponder on that another day. And in the meantime, our probe launcher is ready to go. We need to build ourselves a probe. This takes a few polymers, which I have 45 of at the moment. So let's get at least one of these things built up and find out what's going on. Now we have to discover some resources somewhere, because if we don't find iron, carbon, silicon, whatever else, we're not going to last for very long, are we? So let's go ahead and launch a probe. Where do we want to send it, though? Great question. Well, if you look around here, around the asteroid belt or other planetary bodies, it gives you some idea what kinds of resources you might find. So we should probably scan around a little bit here and look for something really, really good. Honestly, this kind of reminds me a little bit of like Mass Effect. I'm not sure if it's supposed to, but it does. Let's launch right over here. Pretty good amount of resources to be found in this general area. Now, one important thing to note is that even though my science ship discovered this over here, that doesn't mean we have gathered these resources. In fact, we'll be able to build up our own fleet of ships eventually. So right now, for example, I have a cargo ship. I'd like to go and pick up some of the food and bring it back. Eventually, we can also build up some mining ships, which will probably give you an idea of something we're going to do once I discover an asteroid that has some resources I need. But here comes some more story-driven events. Yeah, the crew are asking a lot of questions about what the heck happened to Earth, and productivity has dropped. If we don't answer them, then we're going to find some problems. We are going to commit to sending an expedition back to Earth, because we don't want to have a mutiny back home, and the people are a little bit rattled. These, by the way, are some of the events. You can click on some of these. Sometimes they basically just say, hey, can you do some story stuff, or can you promise to improve our resource generation, or something along those lines, in order to build up some trust and keep the story moving forward. Anyway, what do we discover over here? Well, we found a couple of things. We found an asteroid with some iron on it. Well, that seems kind of important, and then there's also this carbon asteroid as well. Perfect. So, we need to build up a mining ship. Let's head right back to the Tiqqun to a big docking bay. And over here, I will be building up a mining ship and adding it to our fleet, taking a bunch of polymers, plus at least one person to pilot it. That seems completely doable. In the meantime, let's send an expedition to Earth. Now, depending on what the results are here, I might just have to censor this because I don't want to spoil things as I said. But there's Earth, and oh, that looks surprisingly not very blue. That's not good. No signals to be found back on Earth. The oceans have evaporated and the temperature has risen significantly. The blue planet will never again deserve its name. Well, that's sad. All right, well, using our science ship, we could investigate our company HQ. We could go find my own personal family home, or we could scour the globe for some survivors. All three of these are important and take a bit of time. Let's start by investigating the HQ over the course of the next cycle and see if we find any answers at all. And that is our mining ship done and sent out into space. So let's go to our fleet over here, and I'm going to say we want to start extracting some iron. I need to start gathering this up to send it back home and convert it into some alloys. Perfect. What do we find back here on Earth? Only that our HQ is basically gone. There are no signs of survivors. Science, alloys, all helpful. Let's go ahead and start looking at my own family home. Again, looking for any sorts of ideas to what happened here. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but you get the idea, right? A lot of the early game is going to be simply trying to scour for answers. Why are we here and what went wrong? Now, there are some other things that we can worry about while we are here on the Tiqqun station. Here's an EVA airlock, for example, which allows people to do some spacewalking and try to repair the hull or construct some outer efficiency upgrades. So, for example, if I want to go ahead and say, hey, let's enable this, we'll start taking some of our alloys and sending it out to the exterior. From here, by the way, you will be able to build things, for example, some bigger solar panels and stuff, or upgrade some engines, etc. These are all things we'll need to do in order to make a strong, self-sufficient station. But a lot of that is going to be locked behind some science, and that is where we are going to have a tech lab with a technology tree that is going to allow us to start discovering various different things to improve our chances for survival. Now, we don't have a lot of science at the moment, so I can't do much of this right now, but you can imagine something like a steel mill is going to be very important for us. Transform iron into alloys. We're gathering iron. You can imagine this is something I'm going to need. But everything's a matter of prioritization. Storing some power could be very helpful if something comes by and knocks out your power for a time. Or we could try to improve stability and therefore some trust in a sector. Or we can start awakening humans that were stored in some cryonic pods and say, hey, wake up! Everything's horrible! Right? There's a lot of stuff you can do. So you might imagine this game has a certain strategic element to it where you need to prioritize based on what you anticipate your needs are going to be. Now, that science is going to be really important for my early game survival, so rather than move on to the next event on Earth, I'm going to allow my science team to first collect all of this science, bring it back, just so we can get the research process going, and then we'll go ahead and drop some more stuff off. But there's a lot of good resources back in the ruins of Earth that I'll be able to make use of. No signs of life back on Earth. In fact, the planet is so toxified, it's even more inhospitable than Mars. Ooh, that's no good. All right, so there's a bunch more resources we'll extract over here, including a load of polymers. Once we finish gathering up the science that have been gathered up from these three events, we'll send the ship back to the Tiqqun. And that is going to be a treasure trove of science that we can use to keep ourselves up and a-running. In fact, I should have enough already stored up. Let's go back to the science area and research that steel mill. I said that was going to be important, and I stand by it. By the way, you can see that there are going to be some sub-researches for these different categories as well to boost up some efficiency. So science is a very, very important aspect of the game. Now, our hull integrity has been gradually dropping down, so I'm spending some of my alloys right now to have people go out there and repair the hull and just keep it afloat right now. But yeah, things have not been looking good. Not looking good at all. Now, it is worth noting that this is not the type of game where we're going to be able to set up a bunch of reproduction and expect our population to naturally propagate itself. That's just not going to be a thing. The only way to get additional people is going to be either discovering them somehow, which I don't even know if they're out there, no spoilers, but you can't also thaw out people from the cryonic pods because we had a whole load of people asleep and ready to go for when we arrived at whatever our eventual destination was going to be. So my new goal at this point is to try and find and gather up 500 cryonic pods so we can wake some people up. I mean, I don't know, they might be out there somewhere. Maybe there's derelict ships that are just floating in space with people asleep just waiting to wake up. Dunno. Now, while we wait for the steel mill to research, there are other things you could consider building. For example, we have workshops, which is where you have some building mechs. You also have stockpiles, which is going to house up to 100 resources of any particular type. Oh, what happened here? Mission reports from Earth are being discussed, and people are upset. Stability goes down. Well, that's not going to be very good for me. Anyway, so you're going to have up to 100 of any resource in these stockpiles. So you need to build a bunch of them in order to actually make sure everything is taken care of, but we're fine. I'm also growing insects to eat because crickets, it turns out, are very, very nutritious. Other things that we will be able to build, though. So we have our docking bay. You've already seen that. There's the EVA. There's the probe launcher. We just finished researching that steel mill, so there's a nice, big, fat working facility for us right here. We like this thing. We should probably get this set up somewhere. Right there, I guess, is going to have to do, but it's not exactly the most space-efficient thing I've ever worked on. There's also going to be plenty of housing for people. We have an infirmary in case people get injured in some way, a mess hall, and then, yeah, we're going to add a lot more onto this list as time goes on. Now, I can imagine that once we get this steel mill built up, we're going to run out of electricity very quickly, so we need to start getting some additional power generation. Let's go to the outside of the station and make sure we upgrade some of our solar panels, adding in an additional 40 power, which is going to be very important. We will not be doing any hull repair while this happens, but that's okay. We've built up our hull integrity enough that we should be able to weather that storm without too much issue. There we go. All right, so that takes care of our power needs, and sure enough, we just drained a lot away. So I need to get some additional stockpiles over here because at the moment, we don't have any place to store some of the iron that we'll be gathering up. Unfortunately, I kind of regret a lot of the placement of my buildings in this particular prologue. I had no idea what I was doing. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get some of these things placed. We're going to need plenty more stockpiles. Make sure everything is connected by a road, by the way. Otherwise, you'll find that your robots cannot get anywhere. That would be a problem. And don't forget to take care of some of these events when they pop up. Now, I would absolutely love to open up a new sector so we have a lot more growth space, because as you noticed with something like the steel mill, some of these buildings can be pretty large. In the next 10 cycles, I'm going to try to open something up. Is that doable? I don't know. Let's take a look over here. Here's our Sector 1, and then there's Sector 2. If you have enough alloys, some food, some people available, and electronics, we can override the locks and get a lot more space. Let's go ahead and do that and send a load of resources over here. Elbow room, it's Manifest Destiny on a Tiqqun station. Anyway, with this stockpile over here, I want to make sure that we are saying we want to store some of our iron. That'll be kind of important for us. Once this thing is properly set up, which is here now, we'll start delivering a lot of this stuff, and then we can send it over to the steel mill, and that creates some alloys. Now, we have our second sector open, and with this comes a whole load of other resources, which is great. However, we also sent some people over to live in this sector, and at the moment, they are currently homeless. So now we have to manage the ecosystem of 2 different sectors, including some food and mess halls and housing and so on. And I think these guys can eventually get linked up by some trains to make sure we are transferring resources around. But you can imagine that by the time we've unlocked all of the sectors of the ring, the logistics system can get a little bit complicated. Now, something unusual is out here towards the outer reaches of the solar system. Not sure what, but we're sending a science team over here to find out because, well, found some sort of a company signal. And company protocol dictates that we must respond. The wreckage of the Outer Hope is surrounded by debris from a past battle? Frozen bodies float outside the station? Good lord! What could that mean? Oh no, if only you guys were playing this game yourself, you'd be able to go find out. But I won't tell you. I know, I'm being a complete and total tease about this, but you all know how this works, right? Come on. I don't want to be the one to rob you guys of the joy. Also, I don't want to be the one to rob myself a potential future series. If this is something you guys want to see in a lot more detail later, maybe it would be worth me playing this. Just saying. So you know what that means. You gotta smash that like button down there and let me know that this is something you want. Just saying. Anyway, back to the main video. Now, if you're wondering how you transfer resources around between sectors, just understand that they are not immediately linked to the same bank. You actually do have to manage transferring resources back around, kind of as I said, which does allow you to actually specialize certain sectors if that's something you want. But basically, you go down here to this resource management, and for example, I'm looking at Sector 1, where I've got a 38 food. I actually had 58. I set 20 aside to then go and get distributed amongst sectors. And you can see here that we can prioritize different sectors and where that food is going to go. In this case, just to Sector 2, because, well, we need to have some food over here, otherwise these people are going to starve. So by simply taking some of these resources and putting them into a stockpile, then you can come over here, let's say Sector 2, and increase how much has to be over here. So we're going to see some of the food get taken away from this stockpile over here, and then the robots are going to transport it up down this direction and drop it off. And all of a sudden, boom, we've got some food. It's a little bit more tedious than I would like, but I'm pretty sure there are going to be methods of making it a bit more automated later on. What do we find over here? Interesting. Looks like we did find some cryopods, which means we're going to have some people to extract. Beautiful. Okay, so do we dismantle this and scavenge resources, or do we leave it alone? I like scavenging. Scavenging is generally a pretty good thing, am I right? I hope I'm right. Make sure you come over here to your fleet, by the way, in your transport, and you do have things like these cryopods selected as an option to pick up. If it's not selected, no one's going to get it. Same thing with the mining station here. This is a very easy mistake to make. Make sure that you are mining resources, but then understand your mining ship is not delivering it back to the Tiqqun. You need to turn that on with your transport ship to go and pick up whatever has been mined. Now, I do see a bit of a problem here. I'm running out of power. Very important we get that fixed ASAP. Let's turn off something like our tech lab, because that cost me a bit of trust simply for having a blackout even for a moment. Understandably, that scares people in space. Kind of important to go back to the Tiqqun station and continue upgrading our solar panels. Really don't want to run out of power like that again. Now that we have a bit more power to work with, we can turn this sucker back on and resume some research. Pretty much should always be doing this. Could awaken some more people. How many spare workers do I have right now? Looks like I've got a population of 137, all of them working right now. Yeah, we are currently overworking our people, if you look down here at the bottom left, which means getting more folks actually would be a very sensible thing to do. So let's research that cryonics center. And we will go collect these cryonic pods and bring them back, because I need more folks. So we've got access to the cryonics center. That's obviously a big deal for us. Where can I fit this in a place that makes sense? No, my spacing is awful. Yeah, you can imagine space management actually becomes kind of important in this game. So you don't make the mistakes I'm making right now. Okay, we have the cryonics center being built up right now because we are in dangerous working conditions. Way too many people working in the same sector right now. And it's leading to accidents. The more you overwork people, the more likely bad things are going to happen. Also, stability is starting to go down and it's crushing my trust. Also, overworking people is leading to inefficient hull integrity repairs, and we're dropping rather rapidly. Bad, scary things happening, but that is why we are trying to wake some folks up and relieve some of the pressure. Yeah, you can start to see very early on how a little bit can get out of control in this game, and all of a sudden you find yourself on your back heel. Look how many accidents are starting to happen over here, right? I'm kind of letting this fall apart a little bit on purpose to give you an idea. This is not, just because it's a story-based game, does not mean that this is going to be some walk in the park and they hold your hand throughout all of it. No. Bad things can and will happen, and you need to be prepared to react to these things. it might be worth turning a few things off. For example, this tech lab right here has 30 workers. Free that up, and maybe we can have a few more people that are free to go and do other more important things. Do we need people working at the polymer factory? No, not right now. So now we are not overworking these areas. Am I building any probes? No, then let's turn some of those off too. You get the idea. Now we're kind of going to overwork and eventually maybe just some extra hours, though having people getting healed from all these accidents is kind of important too. Turning off a lot of buildings, bring me back down to optimal working conditions, and now we're starting to make some more progress on repairing the hull, which means we are not going to die today, but now we're also not producing some resources like our alloys or any polymers. I'm building out another EVA suit over here to try and double up on this, but then you can imagine we're going to start burning through our alloys even faster, right? There's a lot going on over here. Something I'm not quite far enough along in this save file to show off for you guys is at some point we are going to unlock, let's call them social policies, methods of dealing with some of your people. Because if they get unhappy or they don't trust you very much, oh, well, bad things could certainly start to happen. And that's where I'm saying that this game reminds me a little bit of something like Frostpunk. You've got to not only stay alive and continue feeding the main machine, or in this case, your hull, but you also have to maintain the trust and goodwill of your people. And if you can't do that and you run out of materials or manpower, oh, man, it's just going to be a really rough journey for you. There we go, we repaired the hull up at least a bit, so that's looking a whole lot better, but there's so much more we need to do. I still don't have access to much in the way of science. My people are only barely working under some optimal conditions, but if I turn a bunch of these other buildings on, we're going to find ourselves overworked pretty darn quickly. I need to continue exploring the solar system, looking for survivors at any cost. Try to find more people to add into our roster, find some answers, find more resources, for God's sake. Now, there's a lot more that we can still do. I'm only showing you kind of the very, very early section of the game to give you an idea of some of the resource balancing that you're going to do and why this game can get kind of challenging. But other things we're going to be able to do at some point. If you look at the Tiqqun station, there's this thing called the Vol engine. This is the drive that actually allows us to transfer around. And eventually we will be able to repair this, and the Tiqqun station will become mobile, moving from different locations in the solar system. And in fact, there's going to be some very compelling reasons why we need to do that. I won't explain what they are because I mean like that, but we're going to need to be able to move if we want to survive the things that might be coming my way one way or another. I mean, who's to say that we are the only survivors out here? Who knows what the heck happened in the time that our station kind of blipped out of space and time for a little while. Could be really good, could be really bad, but I'll continue probing, looking for answers, trying to scrape out some sort of a living. And maybe it succeeds, or maybe it all goes horribly wrong and humanity is doomed and we're just prolonging our own inevitable death. Now, I'm very aware that this video is not going to show off everything you probably would like to know about this game. And I'm doing that for very deliberate reasons, as I've already stated several times. Mostly, I wanted to show you what the theme of this game is, what kind of mechanics you're going to be looking into, and the difficulty of balancing out resources, manpower, and so on. The game is really not forgiving at all. What is my verdict, though? After only playing for a few hours and hiding half of what I've discovered so far, I think the game is really, really promising. It is beautiful to look at, the mechanics are solid and very well polished, the balance is difficult to figure out, and some of the logistics systems can take a little bit of tweaking and a lot of micromanagement to figure out, but overall, I'm absolutely intrigued with the direction that the story is going. I find it sufficiently challenging. You might even lose the first time you play, but that's okay. It's brutal survival in a sci-fi atmosphere. I would say if you're the type of person who loves games like Frostpunk and you enjoy sci-fi atmospheres, then this might just be the perfect game for you to try out, so I'd highly recommend it. Thank you all very much for watching this video. I do hope that you enjoyed and found it at least somewhat helpful. Be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment and subscribe if you did, and if you guys would like to see me play a full series of this game going into the entire story, I am open to that possibility. I'll be watching to see what you guys think. But regardless, if you want to try it out for yourself, well, there is going to be a link in the description down below. My name is Pravus, and I will see you guys next time.